I'd like to share an unbelievable story. In 1989, the Russian government, as a show of goodwill, invited 7 Rabbanim from across the globe on an official visit. Amongst those 7 was the former chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Landau. He should be gesund. And interestingly, oddly enough, they arrived there on May 1st, which was the Russian day which celebrated communism, and the country was bedecked in red flags and red banners. As part of their tour, they were taken to a poor neighborhood in Moscow called Marina Rashta. And in Marina Rashta was an old wooden shul, almost 100 years old, that Stalin had allowed the poor laborers to construct, and because Stalin had allowed it, the communist government had laid their hands off of it, and it still existed, it still stood. It was Rosh Chodesh, and the group went to daven Shachris in this shul. They honored Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau to lead the tzibur in Hallel. But as he approached the Amud, something strange and odd jumped out at him. Instead of the traditional engraving, Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Samid, that is on so many of Chazan's Amudim across the world, scratched into the Amud were the words from Hallel, Ana Hashem, I beg you Hashem, Malta Nafshi, save my nefesh, save my soul. Rabbi Yisrael Meir was intrigued, and after davening he went over to one of the eldest participants and he said to them, do you have any idea why this is written on the Amud? The fellow said, of course I know. He says, when this shul was first started, it was such difficult and tumultuous times, and we knew that we had a terrible, terrible, challenging period of time ahead of us. We wanted to remind ourselves that although the communists had the ability to take our guf, they could take our lives, they could exile us to Siberia, but at the same time there was one thing no one could take from us: our nefesh, our true identity, our nishmas elokim, our Jewish soul. So we scrolled into the Chazan's Amud the words Ana Hashem Malta Nafshi. Let's remember that there's one thing they can never take. And look, the old man said, we're still here. Rabbi Yisrael Meir was very, very moved. But that's not the end of the story. Sadly, a short while later, the anti-Semitic group Pamyat burnt the shul down. The shul was totally scorched. It was torched. And miraculously, the Sifrei Torah somehow survived. A few years later, when Rabbi Yisrael Meir was actually the chief rabbi, he was invited once again to Moscow for the Hanachas Even HaPina, for the groundbreaking of a new shul on that spot. It was a large event with lots of pomp and circumstance. The mayor of Moscow was there, the American ambassador was there, and they asked Rabbi Yisrael Meir to address the crowd. Right before he ascended the podium, a few gentlemen came over to him and they showed him something which nearly took his breath away. They said, do you know that although the shul burnt to the ground and nothing besides the Sifrei Torah survived, there was one piece of wood that remained untouched. And they showed him a piece of the Amud, of the Chazan's lectern, and the words that were inscribed on it, Ana Hashem Malta Nafshi, were 100% intact. Hashem had indeed saved the nefesh. He'd saved this symbol so that the generations to come would understand that the Rebbe Shalom continues to save us. Rabbi Yisrael Meir was so choked up he could barely talk as he stood there in front of the large crowd, holding the pasuk on a burnt piece of wood, Ana Hashem Malta Nafshi. There wasn't much that he had to say. All he had to do was feel that the Rebbe Shalom had once again saved Klal Yisrael. You know, it's the end of Chanukah. We have just 2 days left. What's the message of Chanukah? The message of Chanukah is that we have a little bit of oil. We have a small flame, but it continues to burn. Indeed, the Rebbe Shalom Malta Nafshi, he has preserved our nefesh. Let's internalize this and let's understand the incredible miracle of Jewish survival.